Dacha Hao, Washa Michael Larson, Washa Nima Depungyu. Hello, everybody. This is Mike Larson from BBC IML, and this is A Moment with Mike. So, a much cooler day today. We had storms over the last few days. Yesterday was sunny and mild, but today we got rain again, but it was almost like fall today, so it was a beautiful day out there. Went for a hike around Long Lake this morning, did a little video, and talked about, I talked a little bit about Jack Morissette, and he was just a fantastic guy. I learned a lot about sales in the car business from Jack. He was old school sales. I was a pretty good salesperson. At least I thought I was. I would sell about 20 to 30%, which made me just a little bit better than everybody else until Jack came in there. And he wound up being a 90% closer. And by the way, hello Lynn, hello Chad, thanks for joining me. But he was a 90% closer. Has anybody heard the saying that you can impact some of the people all of the time, all of the people some of the time, but you can't impact all of the people all the time? And I believe that. And everything in life is perception and what we believe. We get beyond our BS, our belief system, and we can't go beyond that. And my belief system at the time was that I couldn't get past that 20 to 30%. I was just a little bit better than the others. That was good enough, and I was good with that. And then I saw Jack, and everybody that came in, he sold. Everybody, he always sold them. 90% closer. Basically, he was influencing all the people all the time, and he just destroyed that barrier for me. So I had to find out exactly what it was that he was doing that made him so much better. He was making me look foolish. I mean, I thought I was pretty good, and he was making me look foolish. And this guy, you had to understand who he was, first of all. He was the nicest guy. There was not a politically correct thing about him, though. It was really crude about what he said. But he loved everybody. And his biggest fear was he was going to disappoint somebody. So he would come into the dealership, and he'd go around and make sure he said hi to everybody, and he'd tell a story with everybody in the morning, and everybody loved him. Everybody wanted to spend time with Jack. But watching him go through this, I watched this whole sales process. And at the end of the sales process, he sat these people down and he wrote out the contract, and he turned the contract around to these people. And what he said was, that I'll never forget. I'll never forget this. But he turned that contract around, and he said to him, well, you got two choices. I can either punch you in the nose, or you can buy. And they'd laugh at him and they'd sign, just like that. And I thought, if I tried that at 6'2", 230 pounds, people would take me seriously, and I think I'd wind up into a fight or walk out on me. But he made it work. So I learned two things from that, is that rapport was incredible. Anything we do in life, we got to have rapport. No doubt in my mind. You have to build rapport with people if you want to change them or you want to influence them. So his rapport was incredible. I think anybody could have gone up to that desk where those people were there, and obviously wouldn't want to do this, but they could have spit in those people's face and they would have hung there, because Jack built incredible rapport with them. And that's the one thing I learned. The other thing I learned was I couldn't close like him. I couldn't do that. But what I learned from that is I learned my own method of closing at that time. But building rapport is what I really learned from that. And I spent more time on asking people questions, because that's what he did. He'd ask questions like crazy. And he'd make them feel good about themselves, because people want to feel when they're in a conversation with you that they're better off than you are. So when you ask them questions, you're making them feel like they're being a part of changing things, of of helping you. And when I first went on the show floor, or the out on the car lot, the first day I was ever in sales, I sold 2 cars that day because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I just went out and asked a bunch of questions, and people felt sorry for me, so they started to help me. And if I had learned my lesson right then, it would have saved me a lot of time. Eventually, I did look back at that and say, hey, that was the trick there, was helping people feel good about themselves. And whether we're leading or selling, everything in life is sales. When you get up in the morning, you have to convince yourself to get out of bed. You're selling yourself on the reason to get out of bed. And you have to make yourself feel good about that. When you make breakfast in the morning, you have to convince yourself that breakfast is going to be worth it enough that I'm going to go through the work of making all this stuff. So you're selling yourself on that. If you're cleaning the house, if you're mowing the lawn, you're selling yourself on all of that stuff. When you get to work, if you have to get somebody's help at work to help you with something, you have to sell them on the idea that they need to help you. So everything is sales, including leadership, including team building, including hiring, including everything that you do in life is sales. In fact, when you're buying something, you are selling. Because when you go on a car lot, for example, I know I make examples of car lots a lot because everybody understands that's sales. But when you go on a car lot, you are selling that car dealership on why they should sell it to you for a less price. So the sales is going both ways. And no matter what you do, that's happening. And I always get a kick out of people that say, well, I don't like sales. I won't do sales. Well, they do it every day in their life. If you have children, how are you going to get them to clean their room? You got to sell them on the idea to clean their room. So everything is sales. But Jack, I learned so much from him. He spent his life in sales, and he had these stories that were just remarkable. And I learned from that also that people just love stories. And usually his stories were about something that he messed up and made himself look foolish. And he would make the other people around him feel good about themselves. And they just loved him for it. So that, thinking back to that, and it was Candace who had the story about Jack. Jack had all of these great comments, and one of them, one of his comments was that he was at the end of a very, very mediocre career. It was on his way out of a very mediocre career, and he had these great stories all the time that would just connect people and make us all love him. And I've never been to a funeral. He died 2 years ago. I've never been to a funeral that people had so much fun at the funeral. I mean, there was people that were sad there. It was sad. You know, I had got a tear in my eye because of losing a really good friend. But everybody was happy there. And Jack had beer that he just loved. And it was skunky beer. It was the most terrible tasting stuff you'd ever tasted. But his comment on that was, well, if you drink a beer that nobody likes, you don't have to share. but everybody at the funeral had a bottle of beer, and we all kind of choked our way through it. But talk about leaving a legacy. Talk about living your life right, with integrity and moral compass, and doing right for everybody all the time. Jack would never do anything if he thought it was going to hurt somebody. And look at the legacy he left behind. He's been gone for 2 years now. And every time I did get together with my buddies from the car business, like Eric DeLacy, like Chip Richards, like Ron Johnson, and all those guys, Candace, all of those people, we always talk about Jack. And that's what I want from my life. I want to, when I'm gone someday, hopefully that isn't for a very long time yet, but when I'm gone from someday, wouldn't that be great to have almost 1,000 people come to your funeral and have a good time at your funeral because you changed their life and you added to their life so much that they came to your funeral and had a good time and told all the stories about your life and they all laughed about it. I mean, there wasn't anybody there that didn't have a smile on their face. I've never been to a funeral like that before. And that's the type of, that's legacy. That's true legacy. That's living your life and making a difference for people in their lives. And that's what life is all about. And he never went to work without the idea that he was going to serve people. Because of that, He sold 75 to 100 cars a month, just unbelievable numbers. And money wasn't the important thing for him. It was about serving people. It was about making a difference in people's lives. His wife was a fantastic woman, and they were together for 60 plus years. So legacy, I mean, everything about this guy was just fantastic. And I remember we used to go golfing with him, and he would always do the cockroach flop, is what he called it. He'd flop on his back and he'd kick his feet and his hands to do the cockroach flop. But everybody there would be laughing, and that's what we remembered about him. And he changed our perception of life, and he changed our pattern. See, we always get into patterns in life. When you're in a poor pattern, something has to break you out of that pattern. When you're in a good pattern, something has to keep you, passion has to keep you within that pattern. And he was very good at both of those. I like to think he knew what he was doing. Maybe he didn't. Maybe it was just natural for him. But man, if there's a life I would like to follow, would be that life. He's got great legacy now. And that's what we should all strive for. We should strive for how we can make a difference in people's lives, how we can change people's lives, how they can go away from us after being with us for 4 or 5 hours and say, man, that was time well spent. That's what we should strive for. Every one of us has that within us. We each have passion. We each have something we can give to this world, and it's a shame if we don't give it to this world. Jack understood that he had to give it to this world, and he had a gift, and he gave it freely, and look what happened in his life. Just a fantastic life, and everybody loved him for it. So when you're down, you know what? This COVID-19 has got a lot of people down. I read on Facebook my passages, and some of the passages come back, and I can tell people are a little frustrated by it. But what they're focusing on is what's wrong. They need to break that pattern, and they need to find out what their passion is, what they're good at. Your passion is where your strength is. Find out what that passion is. That's what you're supposed to be sharing with people. That's what you're supposed to share with the world. So you can be a Jack in this world. And that would be the advice I would give anybody. That's what I learned from a great man. That you have to use the skill you have. It's your gift, and you have to give it to the world. And when you can do that, and you can change people's lives and make people feel good about themselves, and let them give something back to you again, because people gave back to Jack all the time. They reciprocated to him all the time. If you can do that in your life, imagine the life you would have, and imagine what that funeral will look like, and the legacy that people would be talking about when you're gone. That's what we should do in this life. We should treat people like that. We should act like that. We should give them a gift, and that's what should happen. So that was my take from today. You know, the video I did earlier, I talked about it also, but it wasn't long enough. I like to try and keep those under 5 minutes. But I really wanted to talk a little bit more about that, and to talk about what I considered a great man, a guy that if you saw him, he was 5 foot tall, 140 pounds. He didn't look like much. And you could never think that there is a great man within that body. And that's another lesson from this. Never judge a book by its cover. Everybody has greatness within them. Everybody has love within them. Help them bring that out. And we all make this a better world. And when you do that, success will follow. And success doesn't always mean money, but it probably will. And one of the great lessons I've also gotten from one of my mentors, Paul Martinelli, he said, you never know how much you care until you're rich and you can give. So why wouldn't we want to find our passion and give it to the world and share it with the world and become successful so we can give to other people, we can make this world a much better place. So there's my soapbox for the day, and what I learned from Jack Morissette. We called him Gramps, and we know that he loved brownies and he loved clam chowder, but that was from the clam chowder and the brownies we used to take to work, and he would be the first one in the office to get it, I remember. But what a great guy. So I hope this finds you well. I hope you have a super fantastic evening. This has been fun for me. I see that a couple other people have joined us now. Anthony's on here and Jennifer's on here. Yeah, AKA Cookie Monster. He was the Cookie Monster. That's right, Lynn. And I thank you guys for being on here this evening. And if you like the message I've got here, I try to do 2 of these a day. I usually do one in the morning, and I usually do one in the evening. I've got all kinds of questions every week. Every day I have a different question that's trying to elicit people to talk. As many comments as I can get on that. I want to build my following. I want to be able to help people. I want to be the Jack Morris, my own version of Jack Morissette. So help me out with that and send some comments out. If you need help on your Facebooks, I'd be happy to help you also. If you have something that you'd like me to go over, something subject you'd like me to go over, something that you're struggling with in life, and you're free with me talking about it on here, send it to me. Mike at InspiredMotivatedLeadership.com is my email, or you can text me on Messenger, or you can send the message on Facebook, or even on Inspired Motivated Leadership on Facebook. I'd be happy to go over that with you. I love doing that. If we get into a Q&A session on here, I'd love that too. If you got a question for me, put it up here. I'd be happy to answer those questions. So once again, have a super fantastic evening, and we will talk soon.